Either Rumble isn't on or it's slow.
That would be an issue.
Rumble does come up slightly later.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show before the show.
Show before the show.
Hey there, Sarah. Hey, Ben. Good morning, buddy. Hi, Net. Hi, Karen. Hi, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Victor.
What's up, buddy?
It says it's streaming.
Okay.
I'll just have to refresh it on my computer then. No big deal. Yeah, it's up now. It's up. Thanks. Thank you, Jill.
We need to focus back on maybe next week. Check back in with our friend in Maui.
Yeah, that would be good.
No,
yeah.
What's been up with Maui?
Yes. Because everything's so quiet
And
about
as
that.
catastrophic as shootings can be, and it could happen to anybody.
Sure.
What did I say on Monday? I was literally on the show talking. We haven't had a shooting in a while.
You said it. You said it.
Don't be surprised if we see one now.
Correct. Isn't that sad that it can be predicted?
And whatever. I can't get into certain things, but we've talked about frequency. We've talked about government control.
Yes. Yes.
I know. I saw the shirt yesterday that Derek has, a new shirt.
Yep. Derek
Noah,
has a new shirt.
The man Noah. Hey, Joe, did you ever hear of Noah from biblical times?
Noah's
you ever hear of Noah? I'm just messing with you. Try to get your own. Don't worry. Noah was considered a conspiracy theorist until it started raining.
Yep. Good quote. But you said it on Monday. And then I have a friend that every single school shooting, he says something about it. Like he'll be within the week, he'll go, okay, there's going to be one this week. And I'm like, how do you know? And he's like, I just kind of know. And he like has been figuring out the different things that goes on with our government. And when they're trying to hide something really big, which of course there's a lot of things to hide right now, it happens right in that little time frame. And you could be right. Maybe he feels it in the frequency of things, but
not for a second. This stuff is, it's not random.
No, it's not random.
Something's going on.
Correct. It's not random.
Especially at the time when they just passed a gun bill in Massachusetts. More Amendment 2 rights are being tried to take away at the same time that the government's telling you to be vigilant and look out for terror attacks. Oh, yeah. We're going to take on terror attacks with our hands.
With our hands.
No, they have not found the guy yet.
No. But they've already profiled him of who he is.
Yeah. I don't give their names.
Right. No, and I don't blame you for not giving the names. We don't want to give any credit to that. Not at all.
Mentally ill people.
Correct. The thing that I think is going to be so strange, though, is the same people like Schumer and all of those, the ones that, were very silent. And Schumer's Jewish, by the way, too.
Yeah.
And he was very silent on the massacre in Israel. And now he's going to be just talking about humanity and life lost and all of that. And it's all
You're going to have a lot of kids shot too.
Yeah,
shot and killed. Those
very sad.
When it's announced.
Karen says she's about an hour and a half south of this crazy shooting. The situation is so sad. Well, in that area, that's a very liberal area. They were sitting ducks. None of them had any guns or whatever. Getting blinded by the light.
Blind by the light. Hey, Kimberly, Chris, Paul, Karen, good morning. Hey, guys, we always appreciate it when you jump in, when you like and subscribe to the show as well.
I did, because it was blinding me. Oh. How so, Joe? You want me to turn it up? I just couldn't see. That's how I usually have it.
I'm sorry, what?
How does it look bad?
Well, because it's dark now.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why I turned it up just a minute ago. I can turn it back up. I just didn't know. I mean, if you want comfort, we can do comfort.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I hear voices.
Derek just walked in.
Oh, there he is.
He's early. He's an hour early.
He is an hour early.
I think he's just getting ready.
Okay. We can go ahead and start the show, buddy.
Alrighty.
Hey, guys, welcome into canceltheshow.com. I'm Vic Faust with Lizzie Sparks, Projo in the house as well. Yes, Nancy, it is Friday Eve. We appreciate you jumping in for canceltheshow.com. The October 26th live cast. We are here now for you, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, Monday through Friday, all the time. On our website, canceltheshow.com, news headlines. We've got politics. We've got interviews from all across the country. We have cancel culture education. Fridays, a little free for all. Little paranormal, we do that as well. And of course, we're coming to you on many platforms. You can check out all the platforms on canceltheshow.com. Please like, subscribe, share the show. You can watch on YouTube. You can watch on Rumble. You can watch on Facebook. You can watch on X. You can watch on CloudHub. And then, of course, you can listen at all the normal sites as well. Spotify, Google, iHeart. We're there as well, based out of the St. Louis, Missouri area. We do a little bit of local, but we do mostly national. And, of course, you guys jump in. Let us know what you feel, what you think. You guys give us the story ideas as well. And we invite you in to be a part of the podcast as well. You can not only write in, but if you want to be a part of the show, email me, Vic at canceltheshow.com, Lizzie at canceltheshow.com. We'll send you the link. You can jump in with us as well. That'll work out. All right, coming up today at 9 o'clock hour, doctor and pastor from the St. Louis area, will be in studio talking about these times, many consider end times. Why there's such a battle for your soul that is going on right now. Lizzie's pastor is coming in to do that. You speak very highly of this guy, so we'll see what that is today at 9:00.
Yes, it'll be great. It'll be great.
Also, we've got a situation coming up where we've got the speaker is finally done. For conservatives, it seems like it's pretty damn well. I can only find one literally mark on him. It's a bad one, in my humble opinion, but it's one mark. Outside of that, Oregon moms trying to fight back. We're going to tell you about a school district. It's actually in Oregon, saying that math and reading and understanding of and comprehension when it comes to reading is not really needed to graduate on a standardized test anymore.
Wow.
It's the dumbing down of America. And if you don't think it's done on purpose, think again. There are people at play, powers at play, that have been trying to ruin this country for several decades, and it's just another example. We'll get into that. The dumbass who pulled the fire alarm, a Democrat dumbass, is pleading guilty to a misdemeanor, still trying to say, I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, Jamal, just a very uneducated guy. You just look at him in a situation and you see ignorance. Get into that situation. We've also... in terms of what else we had on those, Owen Shroyer's in jail now, InfoWars guy. There's a little bit more to that story. I mean, he was already under. He's going to jail for 60 days for inciting a riot, but he was already on probation. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And then he had promised not to incite a crowd or say things. So basically, once again, another example of how January 6th was a big trap for people. If you could not keep yourself away, that's what would happen. So
it's a shame.
Yeah,
just a shame.
So we'll break that down. Solitary confinement for him. Went right to it first day. There's a bunch of bad going on with that whole situation. And speaking of bad, we have to get into it because I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to stop. It's a play at trying to take away our Second Amendment rights with weapons and guns. We had a psycho lose his mind and go and shoot up a bowling alley and a restaurant. He's still on the loose. Of course, it's national news. It has been. This is a live podcast, so by the time you hear it, maybe he will have taken his own life. Pray to God he didn't take any more. And hopefully police find him and are able to take his as well. We'll see where it goes. But at airing of this show, 8 a.m. Central Time, 22 people were for sure dead. As many as 50 to 60 others injured. I'm talking about a pro with weapons. He's a pro. He's a gun instructor. Shouldn't have ever been with a gun. He's got a long rap sheet. I don't know how this happened. It did. Families are there. I said on Monday, we haven't had a shooting in a while. It's going to happen because I do think somehow, some way, these things are encouraged, pushed somehow. I can't prove it. I can't prove it. But when it comes to people being played, when it comes to frequencies, when it comes to drugs, when it comes to mental illness, all of those things being played, somehow, some way, you knew it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And of course, our attention goes to that. And then, of course, just recently, there was a gun law passed in the state of Massachusetts, more trying to be passed. It all just scares the hell out of me, Lizzie, because at the same point in time where the FBI and the highest levels of government are telling us, you have to be safe. You have to be vigilant. Keep your head on a swivel. There could be attacks from illegals within this country, literally telling us what they did, they created, telling us you have to be concerned. There could be sympathy attacks from Hamas and Hezbollah members within our own country. And then, at the same point in time, we're trying to take the guns away as well. Just a week and a half ago, Biden's dumbass was talking about, you don't need guns. You don't need guns. Guns just kill people. You just need one shot. So it all doesn't add up. Once again, as we started this show off with, Noah was a conspiracy theorist until it started raining. I can't prove any of it. It's sad. It's scary that this guy did what he did and it's still out there. So many lives shattered because of this. So if anything happens with that case, we'll get updated on that as well. It is interesting that these things happen. And Lizzie, you said you have a teacher friend who also said that he felt something was going to happen. I mean, I literally talked about on Monday, something's going to happen.
You did.
And here it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so planned. We know that. I mean, I'm not saying that our government directly killed these people, but they indirectly do. And we could go into that, in great length, but we knew it was going to happen. There was too much stuff going on. There was too many things they had to distract us from. And it was about time for another shooting. And they don't care about lives at all. And I had said in the show before the show, the same people who were just mum about everyone being massacred in Israel are now going to come out about, this is just so terrible. This is so awful. We got to take their guns away. And they don't even already say anything that these people in Maine were already sitting ducks. Those people didn't have guns. They have huge gun control laws in that city. And so instead, they're going to literally act like, oh, the gun did it. The gun did it.
Yeah. All it takes is one person being armed to take down a guy with a history of mental illness, going in and picking off kids as they're running. I mean, all you can do really is hide, run, and try to fight. At some point, you're a sitting duck if somebody comes in, unless you can protect yourself. Somebody aggresses the aggressor. You shoot the shooter. You fight the fighter. You aggress the aggressor. You take care of business.
Correct.
I mean, it's simple. But once again, you never see any of these people with mental illness and demonic spirits upon them. You never see any of these people with bad intentions going in and trying to shoot police, going to a gun range, going to a gun store, going in states where people are armed and doing this. You only see it when they go after people who don't have weapons near churches, near schools, bowling alleys, in areas and blue states where people don't have guns.
Correct. And there might have been.
Try that in this small town.
Right.
See what happens. FAFO in a small town. See what happens. It doesn't happen. The whole thing makes me go, okay, I'm always trying to not just take things surface, dive a little deeper. Look at what's happening and where these shootings have occurred.
That's exactly right. And the children, and they target children too, because they know children don't have guns.
It's a bigger media story.
Yes, it is a bigger media story. Yeah, they go into schools and they go into, place where children are bowling and do all of this. And it is a mental health crisis. It definitely is. And we have more people that are mentally ill than ever before. They don't have proper mental health, but people are warned constantly about there's red flags all the time with these people. But because the laws are written, there isn't anything you can do about it. This guy was saying that he was hearing voices. He was in an area for some mental health, and obviously that didn't work. And so the thing that the media is already doing, the mainstream media is already portraying him as a Trump supporter. They're already doing
I didn't even hear that yet.
He's fit every box. He's checked every mark. They've said everything about him, that he's big, bad, meanie, and they have to take the guns away. And I don't know that he's a Trump supporter. I don't know that he's even a conservative. I don't know what he is. I mean, you can assume that when, he was in the military, he was a gun instructor and all of that. The only thing that doesn't fit the narrative with him is some of the things he did in his personal life. When I looked him up, if it was the same person, he was for some liberal causes. He liked electric cars. I can't remember what kind of car. I think like either a little sprint car or Subaru or something, and he was for EVs. So that didn't check the box. Exactly. But they're going to portray him as a Trump supporter, but of course he was a Democrat.
The search is still on. I just get more concerned. Number one, these families, these kids. Number two, as we've talked about several times, you have to be, we got to know more about how he got the guns. He was a gun instructor. How he was a gun instructor, how he was given that right with the history of mental illness, it's unfathomable to me. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever how that could possibly even happen. And we got to find out more information when that happens. How can that really occur? Is there a way that you can literally, because there's no reason he should have even had a gun in the first place. And that's where the system breaks down sometimes. And you're like, wait a second, was it done on purpose?
Of course. I really do. I mean, I sound like a huge conspiracy theorist right now, but I do think it was done on purpose. There's too many red flags about him. I think I am going to go as far as say, when you go look at all past school shootings and you end up finding how they're connected, like in Broward County, you know that the police chief had just been friends with Hillary and she had been down there to see him. We're going to find out those things too. They push mentally ill people who maybe shouldn't have a gun to go do these things. This is not an accident. It's not an accident where it was. And people can say I have a tinfoil hat on, but it is the truth that this will come out. But you will never see it in the mainstream media. They will not do that. They're already acting like he was some right-wing wackadoodle. And here's the biggest thing, that it reminded me of the shutdown. When you turned on the news, and I turned on different sources, and one of them was ABC, and the reporter, and forgive me, I can't remember his name, but he was saying things like, everybody stay in your house and lock your doors and don't leave.
Well, that's what they were saying for the area. I mean, that's been given by the state.
Sure. Well, but I get that,
because this guy's on the loose.
And I'm not saying they
unless
shouldn't
he's
do
killed
that.
himself.
Yeah, I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. If that was my kids, I would tell them to do that exact thing. But here's the difference. I would do it with an ominous tone. These reporters are giddy about that. Let's lock people down some more. Let's put them in their house and let's scare the freaking hell out of them. That's what's going on. The bigger picture is they want us scared and afraid all the time. You speak up, they're going to shoot you. If you say anything, they're going to put you in jail. If you say anything else, I'm going to take your job because I'm going to make you put something in the arm. This is not an accident.
Well, what I was talking about and what I saw on Monday, Jill says it's not conspiracy theory, Lizzie. The docs I sent you were declassified through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, in 2018. It confirms that MK Ultra was real.
Correct.
Unabomber, Lee Harvey Oswald, Charles Manson. And that's how we started this show off. I just feel as if there's a lot more to things that are going on. Also, Megan adds in, Megan Kirk says, he was hearing voices. I've heard this too, that overuse of THC causes psychosis. I bet he was smoking weed. The stuff today is much more powerful and messes with the mind. This is the problem, and they are making this legal. That's nuts. That's Megan's opinion from that standpoint.
I have to disagree with that.
And that's what the show's about.
I smoke a ton of weed, and I am not suffering from psychosis. Sorry.
Well, and I think, but you're not mentally ill. I think, and
that's
you're
the
right
other
to
part
that point.
to this.
You're not mentally ill.
It helps people with mental illness.
That's interesting. And Megan, I've heard that too. I know a massive child psychiatrist. He is considered to be one of the best in the world. He is in the St. Louis area. And he has said he is not against weed for some of these areas. And keep in mind, he is out there prescribing medicine for people to take. And he told me he is not against weed in any form, except if you're not 21. He's like, the brain has to fully develop. And from all of his research over 35 years, and he travels the world as a speaker. I'm not going to give his name right now. I want to make sure that he's fine saying it publicly first.
Correct.
And but he tells families, as long as a person is 21 and the brain is mostly developed, he is all for weed, marijuana, in anxiety, in depression, in situations like that, instead of a pharmaceutical.
And I agree with that too. As an early childhood educator, I agree that up until the age of 25, I'll even go as far as saying 25, children should not have not only just weed, but they shouldn't, of course, have alcohol, but they shouldn't have ADHD drugs and all of those things. And people can come at me and yell at me about it. But I was with small children for well over 30 years, and the children statistically, and I kept kept a log. The children that were the stats on that were that children that had ADHD drugs were more apt to need that feeding of the brain, that they were more apt to be a drug addict later. Little kids' brains need to be, unless they have some humongous problem, they need to be left alone. And I do think that that's a lot of the problem today. I don't know that it's weed. I don't know. Everybody's brain is different. So
great point that Mary brings up in drinking alcohol. I know people that get extremely mean. They are mean drinkers, mean drunks. And you guys know what I'm talking about. And now other people who get really happy and joyful and just kind of goofy, like I do, if I drink alcohol, and just happier and smile. So different drugs, and alcohol is a drug. Weed is a drug. If you want to, they affect people differently.
That is absolutely true. Everybody has a different brain makeup. And so that's why you need to leave the kids' brains alone until they're 25 years
Derek
old.
does LSD. He'll be in her studio later on.
Yeah.
So
Derek's coming in, and I know he does all kinds of things. LSD, and I don't know. He does crack cocaine too.
Joe says, I know people who have suffered mental illness from smoking weed, but if you were buying it off the street, who knows what it was laced with? That's the key. This ain't, you don't, and here's the thing, unless it's new. Joe, have you gotten your weed off the streets?
I mean that's.
Or do you go to a place and get it?
Well, I do.
Yeah, crack cocaine.
I go, my crack cocaine. But no, I go to a dispensary now. However, I used to smoke like street weed back in the day, and I don't know, it never gave me psychosis. It never, and there might be some people that it affects differently. However, somebody's like, I can't believe they're legalizing this stuff. Well, it's not like that for everybody. It helps more people than it hurts.
Right. And Jay's saying on here, alcohol is more dangerous than weed. So, I mean, there's probably some.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's truth to that. I've never smoked weed, not condemning people that do. So I can't speak very educated on that situation. But I agree with you, Vic. Like, if I drink alcohol, I don't know that I get any meaner. I probably just get, crazier. But
I'm sorry. We got some serious topics, but that was funny. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Oh my God. You're not a mean person. What do you mean any meaner?
Well, you were just saying that some people, when they are, somebody on the chat,
they might be predisposed to it. Just they're
yeah. Some people get mean on alcohol.
Derek, that's a Derek thing again.
Yeah, see, Derek does too. You remember the other day when he was drinking?
You drink nasty beer, you get a nasty attitude
out there. Oh gosh, it was terrible.
And the nasty beer is Busch Light.
Yeah. Well, anybody.
I still can't believe how popular that is. It is so damn popular.
It is.
It is massively popular.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so popular.
That's also the dumbing down of America with our beer. It's a dumb beer.
A dumb beer. Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it is, but think about how we're talking about this, Vic. It's like there was children, again, massacred by some crazy ass person. I mean, it
takes me back to Sandy Hook.
It does. And all of this is tragic. It's all really sad. Somebody said to me, yesterday, text me and said, I don't even think these people are dead. I said, yes, they are. The problem is,
don't even start.
I said, the people are dead. There are really, people really in Israel are dead. Now, is there a lot of theater? So not everything that we see is true, of course. But of course, these people are dead. The problem isn't that they're dead. It's that this was purposely done. I mean, nobody can convince me that these things aren't done. Like Jill had said on the chat line, she had sent me those things. Some of that I had already knew. And it's absolutely true what our government is trying to do to us. I mean, to me, it's obvious, but to the average American, it isn't. That will not be talked about on mainstream media. It will be talked about over and over and over that some mean Trump supporter is awful and we needed to take his guns.
Well, we'll see. I still want to see this Trump deal. I don't think they're going to be able to push that narrative, although they will. There are times when
they will.
Media will. The little that I know about them, that's where we are. But now we have these families. I'm concerned about the families, and I said I'm concerned what comes out of it, because then you see it also happens, and then it gives Democrats a talking point to take your guns away. And once again, the people who are committing the crimes are the ones with records, criminal records, like this jackass.
Mm-hmm.
Criminal records. The overwhelming majority of people in America are not committing crimes that are gun owners. That's just it. They want to focus on the few that somehow got their hands on it and try to ruin it for everybody at the same point in time that we're being told, look out, there could be terror attacks. There could be terror cells within the United States. Oh, yeah, that's right. Middle Easterners are coming through the border. Oh, yeah, we're sorry about that. Yeah, it kind of happened. Yeah, that wall that we could have had up with Trump wasn't there. It could have protected us. Now you have to protect yourself. Okay, how are we going to do that? Oh, yeah, we're going to try to take the guns away now. And as Biden wants to give you a gun that shoots one bullet.
How asinine.
I think people need to realize that no matter what, people are going to obtain guns illegally, no matter whether they're legal or not legal. And if they take guns away, it's going to create way more of a problem than just letting everybody have their guns.
And here's the other thing that you have to remember. This country, good or bad, is absolutely stocked with weapons. There are millions of guns here.
Yeah,
they're not going anywhere. And I can
No.
promise you this, the bad guys, they're not going to be giving their guns up.
No, they're not.
All right. And our own government is responsible for this. And there are a lot of other deeper conversations regarding our governmental agencies, the 3-letter agencies that are a part of this as well. They're not going anywhere. So I don't even want to hear this. We're trying to be proactive before the Democrats get their talking points to try to get votes, to try to raise money for elections. Leave them alone. This is a tragedy. This guy did what he did. I don't know how he was able to be around guns with that record, but I promise you, in most of the cases, they are not allowed. And once again, at the end of the day, the people that he was shooting were people who were unarmed, unable to protect, unable to stop the threat, unable to stop this lunatic because of the laws that the state had there. Just remember that. Greg says the existing laws are not enforced. That's the problem. There's over 40,000 gun laws. So removing the rights of the vast law-abiding citizens must be the solution, right? Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Be careful about this before it happens. That's what we try to get out ahead of things before we start to see it. And it's interesting, just the whole timing of it. All of our attention shifted away from Biden and his son, Hunter, just as we started to see the $200,000 checks being written from his brother to him, right after a deal was getting done with Hunter and the Chinese, right after his brother received $600,000 from across seas. The Israeli invasion happened. Now we have a gun shooting. Hell, that's all even, it's overlapping the Trump trial as well. Trump was in court yesterday. You didn't hear much about even the liberal media. And then in the midst of all of that, on what appears to be a massively incredible popular day for Republicans in D.C., you don't hear much talk about it. What happens? You have a guy, Mike Johnson, and we'll break him down now from a Republican standpoint, who appears to be a godsend. I mean, on the surface, he appears to be a godsend, a speaker. And you have a shooting that everybody's talking about.
They don't want to talk about it.
You're not talking about this man, Mike Johnson, who rose from nothing there out of Louisiana. First person in his family to go and graduate from college, take over Speaker of the House, number 3 in line for the country, and is a Christian conservative who brought a Bible up with him. And the first act was praying with the House of Representatives. And then all of a sudden a shooting happens. And that steals all the headlines away.
Correct. Well, and Joe, I sent you the picture, I think, of them praying there, and that's getting little coverage. And because it is exactly what the quote good conservatives would like about
that's
our
what the
government.
Country needs more of.
That was profound. It made me feel really great. It solidifies what I said about Matt Gaetz. Whether you like him or not, I thought that was the right thing. I know that he didn't.
Matt Gaetz had nothing to do with this, Lizzie.
Well, who did?
This was vote after vote after vote.
I get that, but if he would not have pushed back,
okay, very loosely.
Well, that could be.
If this was his guy, then he would have brought. Matt Gaetz got lucky. And I'm grateful.
Yes. I agree.
This was a godsend. This had nothing to do with Matt Gaetz. It had to do with Matt Gaetz didn't even have a plan. But I agree with you. Would I rather have this guy than
McCarthy?
Hell yes.
100%.
Hell yes.
100%.
Hell yes.
And I agree. You said this to me yesterday.
But we got fortunate.
We did get fortunate that it was a God thing. It wasn't a Gaetz thing. It was a God thing. Yep, I agree. I agree.
The other thing about Johnson coming through in the midst and just the final, we'll continue to follow. If something happens with the gun situation, if something happens with this evil man, if they find him dead, which wouldn't be a bad thing, whatever the case, usually these older men like this who are out shooting, they are dead. They'll kill themselves. They don't stick around.
Yeah.
They don't stick around to explain why. They just don't. But as soon as we find that, because this is a live podcast, we will certainly bring that through. But in the midst of the big news of the day yesterday was the fact the Republicans got their act together. They got it together. And Johnson, thank God, wasn't even on a radar screen anywhere.
No.
And the reason that Democrats like him.
That's a little scary.
Democrats like him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not all of them.
Right.
Cori Bush ripped him, of course.
Of course. The squad ripped him.
Called him anti-LGBTQIA,
yes.
ZBT, yes. Whatever you want to add into the mix. Said he was all about Israel. Of course, she ripped him. But there are members of the Democrat Party like him. And the reason that he was able to rise out of this situation, they said that not only was he intelligent, he was kind.
Mm-hmm.
He had an easy temperament. And he was able to get along with both sides. And one of the first things that he said, and we'll show it to you, was the fact that he immediately, and we'll play it, he was trying to reach across the aisle to Hakeem Jeffries. He's like, we disagree, but man, I want to try to find common ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Republicans don't want to hear this because you feel like you get screwed when you try to find common ground with Democrats. But in politics, you have to find common ground. You have to.
And you have to be able to get along and broker deals. And I know that as a conservative, as a patriot, I don't like that. I don't. I want everything to go the way of the Constitution and God and America first. But in reality, you have to be able to get along with people. You have to be able to cross the aisle. You have to be affable. If you appear like a jerk, no matter how great your policies are, it literally here in Missouri and Jefferson City, in DC, wherever it is, it's like a bunch of frat people or sorority people. And what I mean by that is they want to feel along. They want to get connected. They want to go have a beer with the person. And I know that sounds insane because it is insane. So if they're not friendly to each other, so that's where I'm hoping that the new speaker has been friendly, has crossed the aisle, has been nice, and he can get things done so that the Democrats that aren't deranged, if there is any, but we know like the deranged squad, they're not going to like him. But if the rest of them do, they're going to get some things done.
Yeah, they should be. Here is the issue too. Just backtracking just a little bit here because it was a question that we got. We are a live livecast. We do take live questions. It helps make the show a little bit better. We love your involvement with everything as well. A question that we had here was, where did it go here? I was just being asked. Okay, you have media reports that, first of all, the number of dead in this horrible shooting in Maine keeps changing, guys.
Mm-hmm.
At least 22. Then it was at least 20 now.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's at least 16.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's less, but how does that happen? Here's how it happens. The race to be first instead of the race to be right.
Yeah.
We were first, so we can show our promos. We were first this, we were first that. Join us here. It's because nobody watches local news anymore and everybody's scared in local news. Oh man, we got to, and then there's a promo team. We got to justify our jobs. We got to justify our jobs. We're first.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of hearing, we're the most accurate. We're the most accurate. We have the true facts. That's how these things happen. Everybody's trying to be first. We got the information first. That's the problem. Tara says mainstream media, public enemy, number one. Ginny said last night they said 25. So that's where that situation happened. Yeah, Derek says, where's David Hogg? I think he's been outed. I don't think you're going to see him around anymore. We'll see. Anyway, so back to Johnson, Speaker Johnson. Who is he? Well, he tried to have the 2020 election overturned. He was backing Trump. He is a Trumper. Trump likes him, thinks he's going to be great for the job. He has fought hard against gay marriage. He is 100% pro-Israel. He is a guy who is loved by the Freedom Caucus. He has liberal friends. I mean, so these are all very good qualities if you're a conservative.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
He is a hard stance guy that talks very quietly.
Correct.
And he's different than Jim Jordan. I like this guy. I still would have rather had Jim Jordan. I think Jim Jordan is more of a time for 2023. But hey, maybe, you know what? I'm all about it. My only issue with Speaker Johnson is this. He's also a hardcore supporter of money to Ukraine.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, that is one strike against him, but almost all of them are. I do like that he's the only thing that may be good is he strikes me as a one-issue person, so that he may not take Ukraine and wrap it all in money for Israel or the border. But you're right. But is there anyone up there other than the Freedom Caucus that isn't for sending money to Ukraine? I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. But somebody up there gets it. And so I'm just hoping, since he seems to be not a package deal guy, maybe they won't get as much.
Chris says you can find common ground unless you're a Democrat that can just steamroll over the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
It is the real problem that Republicans aren't willing to do the same to prove a point when they have the power. They said, case in point, Trump's first 2 years in office. Yeah, that was a good point. It did happen. Most of everything that's happened since 2020. And the election never would have happened if the GOP would have gotten off their ass, put safeguards in place, and stopped the liberals from attacking. Derek says money laundering scheme at its best. Derek will be in 9 o'clock hour as well. But Johnson's taken over, and it's going to be interesting. Now, keep in mind, deep breath. Republicans don't have the Senate. They don't have the White House. So it's not like Speaker Johnson's going to come in here and save the day on everything. He can try to work within the parameters that he has. And then we'll see what happens. And, at least the Republicans were united. Finally, all the bickering, all the stuff. Now, hopefully, they didn't ruin themselves or damage themselves, because we don't need the Republicans losing seats in the House next year because it was a slim majority as it was. You have to somehow find a way to make it work. So you get that in place, and then that's all taken charge. So at the end of the day, I like it. I give it a 7 out of 10, except for the freaking Ukraine stuff.
Well, and he did, and Terry was saying something on the chat line that he says that he's not going to give any more unless it can be accounted for. So that's at least.
But that's the problem. It's like we continue to send money, and where's it earmarked for?
Yeah, it's never. Well, they earmark.
They can't find it.
Correct, because they bundle it in other things.
We're talking about $224 million of just taxpayer money. Taxpayer money going to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ask the taxpayers how they feel about it.
I don't know anyone personally that likes their money, that they get up every day and has at least a third of their money going to the government. And then to find out it's not even going to fix the potholes in your area. It's not even going to our homeless veterans. It's not going to our homeless children here. It's going to freaking Ukraine so Zelensky can dance in his high heels and then funnel it back. Funnel it back to Biden.
Another issue that's strong for Speaker Johnson is he said, quote, we have a catastrophe at our border, at our southern border. Thank God. It's my biggest issue with this country. I want to play a little bit so you can hear, if you haven't heard Speaker Johnson talk. He had he had a 10-minute talk yesterday. He was outstanding. Terrific speaker, strong man. And we'll just play a little bit of this for you so you can see who Mike Johnson is from Louisiana.
It is now my solemn honor and responsibility to hand over the People's Gavel here in the United States House of Representatives to a family man, a hardworking man, a Baptist man, a Southern man, a son of a firefighter's household, the gentleman from the great state of Louisiana and the 56th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Mike Johnson.
Which side is standing?
There's Big Mike Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. First, a few words of gratitude. I want to thank Leader Jeffries. I do look forward to working with you on behalf of the American people. I know we see things from very different points of view, but I know that in your heart you love and care about this country and you want to do what's right. And so we're going to find common ground there, all right? I want to express my great thanks for our Speaker Emeritus, Kevin McCarthy. Kevin has dedicated over 2 decades of his life to selfless public service, 16 of those years in this House. And you would be hard-pressed to find anybody who loves this institution more or has contributed more to it. He is the reason we're in this majority today. His impact can never be overstated, and I want to thank him for his leadership, his friendship, and the selfless sacrifice that you and Judy have made for so many years. You helped build it, Kevin, and we owe you a great debt of gratitude. I want to thank the dedicated and overworked staff of this beleaguered House. They accept praise so stoically. But Miss Susan Cole, our House reading clerk, and yes. Listen, all the clerks and all the staff, you know, they're terribly overworked. This has been a grueling process, but they have served an integral role in keeping our republic, and we thank them for that service. I know we all do. I want to thank my dedicated wife of almost 25 years, Kelly. She's not here. We couldn't get a flight in time.
I wanted you to get a little bit of his personality, Mike. I'm going to fast forward here, and I want you to hear him talking a little policy issue. By the way, he's also a strong advocate he's a pro-life advocate. I mean, he is everything to the T. The left would call him a hardcore right speaker. They have already begun attack ads.
Yes, lots of attack ads.
So that should make you feel good if you're a conservative. But within the House, he seems to be respected by Democrats. And for those of you who don't want it, Kevin McCarthy wanted him as well. He and Kevin McCarthy are good friends. So maybe that's the type of guy that can be friends with both a Matt Gaetz and be friends with a Kevin McCarthy and have the support of Donald Trump. Here's a little bit more. We won't stand up for a long time, but I wanted to hear him talk a little more policy.
And so they've been lifting us up. I thank the people of Louisiana for the opportunity to serve you in Congress, and I'm humbled by your continuous support. We will make you proud. To my colleagues, I want to thank you all for the trust that you have instilled in me to lead us in this historic and unprecedented moment that we're in. The challenge before us is great, but the time for action is now, and I will not let you down. I want to say to the American people, on behalf of all of us here, we hear you. We know the challenges you're facing. We know that there's a lot going on in our country, domestically and abroad, and we are ready to get to work again to solve those problems, and we will. Our mission here is to serve you well, to restore the people's faith in this House, in this great and essential institution. My dad, it was mentioned, my dad was a firefighter. He was an assistant chief in the fire department in my hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana, a little town in northwest Louisiana. On September 17, 1984, when I was 12 years old, he was critically burned and permanently disabled in the line of duty. All I ever wanted to be when I grew up was the chief of the fire department in Shreveport. But after the explosion on that fateful day, he nearly died, and it was a long road back, and it changed all of our life trajectories. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. And my dad, he lived with pain all the rest of his life for decades more. And I lost my dad to cancer 3 days before I got elected to Congress, 3 days. And he wanted to be there at my election night so badly. I'm the first college graduate in my family. This was a big deal to him. And so it was several weeks after that. It was early 2017. It was my freshman term, and it fell to me to be in the rostrum one night to serve here as Speaker Pro Tem. I thought that was a big deal until I figured out that's what you do for freshmen late at night. And I think if my memory serves, Miss Jackson Lee was winding down one of her long, eloquent speeches. And not that I was not enraptured by her speech, but I looked up at the top of the chamber there, and I saw the face of Moses staring down. And I just felt in that moment the weight of this place, right? The history that is revered here and the future that we are called to forge. And I really was just kind of almost overwhelmed with emotion. It occurred to me in that moment, it had been several weeks, and I had not had an opportunity yet to grieve my dad's passing, and I just had this sense that somehow he knew. And I had tears come to my eyes, and I was standing here, and I'm wiping them away, and then it suddenly occurs to me, the late-night C-SPAN viewers are going to think something's very wrong with the new young congressman from Louisiana. It wasn't Sheila's speech. I'm sorry. I just knew in that moment that my dad, my father, would be proud of me, and I felt that he was.
And that is Mike Johnson. You get an idea. I mean, he really is a good speaker.
Yeah, he is. You know what? His new name in my book is The Big Johnson, the Big Mike Johnson.
Here we go.
Well, I'm just
hit the button, Joe.
I'm just saying.
Hit the button.
Balls.
Okay, there we go.
Well, he has balls in an elegant manner. I really like.
I'm glad you said he didn't have elegant balls.
Yeah, I didn't say he had elegant balls. I've never seen.
That would have come out the wrong way.
Yeah. Yes, he seems like he has big cojones, but he is in an elegant way and a great speaker. He almost kind of reminds me of a Reagan.
You know what? Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's also Missouri's Cori Bush. Leave it to her to screw things up.
Oh, dear God.
Calling him dangerous.
Uh-huh.
That man's dangerous. Yeah, okay. Yeah, real dangerous. Thanks. But anyway, I do like him. We'll see where it goes. Maybe that's what we need. It's difficult to find a calming influence in the midst of a lot of turmoil, but maybe that's what he could be in the midst of all the turmoil that we have seen in the House, and trying to find some sort of common ground. The problem with all this stuff is the lobbyist, as we already know. It's the money. If you got money, makes the world go round, and if you're taking money from people to get elected, you have to represent certain interest or you are no longer there. And that's how it works. So somehow, some way, we hope that it can work out. Donna agrees with you. Lizzie, being a communicator can really help. And he certainly has that aura about him. This is cancelthisshow.com. I'm Vic Faust with Lizzie Sparks, Pro Joe in the house as well. We thank Complete Auto Body Care, Complete Auto Body Repair, for being one of our show sponsors. 7 locations throughout the St. Louis area for anything car related. They're also looking for jobs, or looking to place people in their jobs. Over 60 jobs available. CompleteAB.com. Let them know you heard about them on cancelthisshow.com. Experience Realty Partners, Kathy Hilbig Strick, Steve Strick. They are still in Kansas City covering what is the most important trial regarding real estate, arguably in the history of real estate right now. So we're going to get more updates. That trial continues to go on. They're going to let us know about that next week as well. So we're grateful for that. Route 66 had a lot of comments off air yesterday. If you didn't have a chance to see it, check out our October 25th podcast from 9:30 to 10, the last 30 minutes of the show. Hamid Hamra, Ham, he owns Route 66 Cannabis. He spoke about business and entrepreneurship. And I had a couple of people, wow. I mean, you talk about a guy who came here from Iran, didn't even know English, built himself up, has all of these incredible examples and experiences as a businessman, and failed at what, 25 businesses?
Yeah, quite a few.
But
quite
he's got a couple that have hit. And you need some wins there from that standpoint. Also, check out our website, cancelthisshow.com. We have our merchandise page up. We sell hats, we sell cups, we sell T-shirts, and we've got our Cancel This coffee as well, American Legacy Coffee, different brands there. It's organic coffee. The people who have tried it here absolutely love it. full disclosure, I have not tried it yet because I don't have a coffee maker and I don't spend time. I use the cups.
You can still
Sorry.
have it ground and put it in a
Yes,
little cup.
you can.
You can.
So we do that as well. Coming up a little bit later, you want our 9 o'clock hour, you got a guest coming up in about 15 minutes?
Yes, we do. And I really love it. He's the pastor at my church. I go to Zion Lutheran Church in the Harvester area of St. Charles County, which is right in the middle of the United States. And we have two really great pastors. And in the midst of the world being so crazy, we were just talking about Big Mike Johnson and how he has a calming voice. Both of our pastors are very strong men. I can't say that they have big cojones because they're my pastors, but they do. They're strong in the midst of adversity. You go to church, you feel better when you leave. They don't always tell you what you want to hear. I mean, they tell you the truth. They tell you that there's a hell. They tell you that things might not be better here on earth, that the best is yet to come up in heaven. But they also do talk about how, especially the pastor that is coming in, I'm very fond of him. My husband's very fond of him. He's a real human. He's competitive. He's funny.
Yeah.
He's just a regular human, but he's a very smart human. And when he comes in, he can tell you all of the accomplishments that he has. But one of the neatest ones is, I am a big person that really feel that there's a battle for our soul. And he wrote a book that's coming out November the 1st that I wanted everybody to hear about it, because if they were interested in buying it, we need to hear this. And he says it from a perspective that's different than other people's perspective. And I'm not going to ruin it. I'm going to have him say what the perspective is.
Well, then let's get into this before you get to that real quick too. Owen Shroyer from InfoWars with Alex Jones. He is now in prison or jail.
Yeah.
So he went to jail. His prison sentence has begun. It was unfortunate because here's the thing. On January 6th, he did not go into the Capitol, but he is heard on camera shouting 717 or 1776 and don't let them run over you, things like that. So he was charged and convicted of amping up the mob with the chance that furthered the riot at a sensitive moment. That's what he was charged with. We all know it's a bunch of crap, but that's what happens when you get into these traps or you get close to the traps. It's unfortunate because what happened is he reported and they sent him right to confinement, solitary confinement.
That is.
I mean,
horrible.
literally for saying that. It frustrates the hell out of me that this stuff can happen. So he faced misdemeanor charges related to the riot, and then he pleaded guilty to breaching restricted grounds. However, he announced his plans to appeal, but then it was announced on October 25th, yesterday. It was his account on Twitter, X, that he had been placed in solitary confinement at the Federal Correctional Institution, Oakdale in Louisiana. And this is what was interesting to me, per ongoing COVID-19 safety protocols. So I was like, what? And then the tweet came out yesterday, breaking information. We have confirmed that through a source with FCI Oakdale Prison that Owen is doing well and remains in good spirits. With that said, unfortunately, he is being held in solitary confinement until October 30th per the facility's absurd, pathetic, quote, COVID intake protocol, meaning they need to make sure that he passes all the tests. It's a bunch of crap. They're trying to make an example out of him. They're trying to hurt him while he is there.
Yeah.
Because he has been an outspoken critic of this administration, critic of mail-in balloting, critical of the 2020 election, as many people are. So unfortunately, he also had to go because he had agreed in 2019. Now, prosecutors were arguing that while Shroyer didn't enter the Capitol, here's why they said that he got what he got. Because many of the people at the Capitol were listening to him. They also pointed to an agreement that Shroyer signed back in 2019. Shroyer signed this because he interrupted a congressional hearing. So since he interrupted a congressional hearing, he agreed not to use loud, threatening, or abusive language or to engage, and here it comes, any disorderly or disruptive conduct at any place upon the United States Capitol grounds. So he violated that by going to the Capitol. So that's why he got a 60-day sentence.
That's a shame. It really is a shame. And we go about the two-tier justice all the time. We know all of people that more on the left side could do the same thing. And not only would they not be in jail, they certainly wouldn't be in solitary confinement.
So that's why prosecutors use that to put him in there.
Correct.
And then he got sent to a place where they have those protocols in place. So he gets put in solitary confinement on top of it.
That's sad.
And as they say, it's because, well, he basically violated his probation by going there and doing that. I wish that he wouldn't have gone to January 6th. I wish that they could not use him.
I agree.
As a poster boy for January 6th, that this is not what you want to do. But conservatives can say, you know, we'll take him as a poster boy because this is incredibly horrible that you would do this. Put him in jail for 60 days.
That's all.
Because he was talking about 1776 and then they called it inciting the crowd.
Yeah, there was a lot more people that incited the crowd.
Yeah, as Donna says, but thugs are set free.
Correct.
Including the individual that took Janae's legs downtown who should have been in prison. Correct. And then all the other ones who actually killed people on top of it. What about the Antifa that were there that day? They go from city to city. What has the government done with them? Unfortunately, this is what happens when you have a Department of Justice who is led by one party. And when that party doesn't like what's happening, they will come down upon you. This is what happens when the upper echelons of the FBI are doing what they're doing. These are massive problems. This is what you have to deal with. And hopefully Owen becomes even more popular. And he's massively popular as it is now, but more popular when he gets out after having to go through the hell that he's going through now.
He absolutely will.
We all know he didn't do it. We all know he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
I mean, he signed that paper. That's what frustrates me. Because, I mean, if you go in and you interrupt a congressional hearing, that's a problem. Okay, if you do it, then part of getting out of that problem is agreeing not to step foot on the Capitol again. And then he went back to the Capitol. So they got him on that. They got him.
They've just been looking for getting people like Owen and all of that. And you and I have talked about this before. We knew it was a setup ahead of time. I didn't until literally the day before. I had my tickets bought and I was going to be out there hoping it was going to be just as fun as the inauguration. But then I get a phone call from insiders in there and they were like, Lizzie, you cannot come up here. If you come up here, they will never let you come back home because you will be one of the people that will be put in jail because you're outspoken. And so I didn't go. I mean, and part of me felt bad for not going because I kind of chickened out, but in the same token, I have kids to raise and I didn't want to be in the Hooskow up there in DC.
That's fine. You didn't need to be. That's fine. I mean, you've got reasons. There you go. Derek's going to be jumping in here in just a second or a couple minutes. I got some business I got to go take care of, so I won't be here for the 9 o'clock hour. But Owen has joined us on the show before. He's a St. Louis kid, CBC graduate, loves the Lou. We had him on the show before. We'll get him back on again. We'll have Alex see if he can set that up again. Alex is friends with him. That's how we were able to get Owen the last time. And we'll get a behind the scenes, what actually happened to him situation. I thought about that, Derek, but thanks again for the reminder to get him on. And as Lizzie says, you can pray for him because he is there. Greg also reminds us, did you know that the original members of Congress did not get a salary? They only received a stipend for travel, et cetera, and a small bonus for their time working in Congress. How have times changed?
Times have changed.
Now we see all these, not just liberals, but there are some Republicans too, making a ton of money. My issue when it comes to making money is these politicians are on committees that know where money is going to be put, contracts that are going to be given, who these companies are that are given the contracts. And yes, it is insider information. And then if you follow their sites and where their investments are going, yes, this is Republicans as well. You only have to have half a brain and it's insider trading. You're getting all the information. That's my problem. And this is why I love Josh Hawley even more now, is the fact that Josh is trying to stop that. Literally, Josh Hawley has put forward legislation trying to stop members of Congress from making money, especially when it comes to investing. And he has had a lot of pushback on it. Why? Because people are going into politics to get rich. Not only does it happen nationally, it happens at the state level. There's usually a motive. People aren't going to be state reps all the time for $35,000 a year, unless they have to have other jobs. there's most of them. I'm not going to say all of them, and you may know more because your nephew is a state rep in Missouri, Lizzie. But most of them have dreams and bigger goals. I mean, most have good hearts. They want to do something, but we all know you can't have that schedule and put all that time into politics and make $35,000 a
No,
year.
you do have to have another job. My son-in-law does have another job, and almost all the reps I know, they do it as a side job, so to speak, because they really, most of them go in there thinking they can make a difference, often realizing they can't. But the few that can make a difference, it's worthwhile that they go in there and sacrifice for all the rest of us.
Yeah, not to get too off track, but that was one of the comments that we had. It's like, wouldn't it be great? Would anybody do the job anymore?
Right. I think we have less and less that are willing to do it.
Especially because you get so many connections when you're in politics. And anyway, those kinds of things happen. Hey, by the way, I wanted to give you guys an update. Here's our website. I want you to check out our website at cancelthisshow.com. And as we show you the website and we show you the merchandise site, Derek will jump in on the show because I'm going to take off, and then you guys can introduce the guest as well. I just don't know what your guys' setup is going to be. And where are you going to come to my spot, Lizzie?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, I'm going to come out of here.
Okay.
And then, of course, we got our Free for All Friday show here. But I wanted to show everybody the website. And I wanted to show everybody the coffee, too, as soon as Joe was able to pull that up. By the way, we got our website. We've got the merchandise site. All of those things you can check out yourself. This is the merchandise site right here. And, you know, you can see all the things that you have. And Lizzie can talk you through that as well, including that coffee.
Yeah. So if you're a coffee drinker and you've never tasted this coffee, it is literally the taste of freedom. Literally, it's organic. It's made by Crystal, who works in our department that works for sponsorships and sales. And her husband is the brewer of this, and it's locally sourced here in St. Louis. So I highly recommend that you do that and you buy that. And Derek is coming in right now, and he is our merch guy. But he also, if Vic ever has to leave or if I am not here, he subs for us. And he, too, is a true patriot. And he and I are going to be talking, and who's coming up next is Dr. Fieberkorn. He's a pastor and he's a doctor. And we are going to talk to him about a plethora of things, primarily how we really are in a battle for our soul these days. And we always have been. I mean, it's far back as scripture. There's always been a battle for our soul, but how it plays out today. And he's going to give you the specifics on how that is. And I'm very fond of him. His daughter is friends with my daughter, and they go to school, and my kids have been blessed to go to the same church. And so I highly recommend listening to what he has to say. And I think most of you will be lockstep in what he's saying, but he will be on the chat line here in a minute. And we have behind his head, that's the picture of our church. So we're going to get ready to come up. Derek, are you all okay over there? Yeah, good to go. You're good to go. Okay. So we're good to go. So, Joe, whenever you're ready, you can put Dr. Fieberkorn's picture up there, and he's great. If you ever even want to listen online or go to one of his sermons, I cannot wait when he preaches, because he's very intellectual, but when you leave, you feel better than when you left, and you want to be a better person. And it's not because we feel anything about it. He backs it all in scripture. Good morning, Pastor Mike.
Good morning, Lizzie. How are you?
How are you doing?
Great.
Okay, we have his mic on now. Okay, very good. Okay, so we have you in here, and when I saw that you were getting ready to write a book, I was like, people that I know have got to hear what you say, regardless of whether they go to church or they don't. Sure. You just get it. So could you tell them all the things that you have done in your past, like your military service and all this before you were a pastor, if you can go into that?
Sure. Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town in southwest Michigan called Sturgis, often confused with Sturgis, South Dakota, not the motorcycle place. And it's Cornfield, USA. Smaller town. I thought it was from the big town because we were bigger than all the small farm towns around us. But went from there to the Air Force Academy, fulfilled kind of a childhood dream to go there. Practiced a little football there. Playing is a little bit of an overstatement. I got in on some special teams, played for the great Fisher DeBerry. And then once you graduate from the academy, it's a 5-year commitment to serve your nation in the Air Force. I served for about 6 years on active duty. Okay, we're getting my voice a little better here. And it's still in the reserves. I just hit 20 years in the Air Force Reserves. But after 6 years, I got out. I went to Concordia Seminary here in St. Louis, received a Master of Divinity degree, took a call to be a pastor in Quincy, Illinois, was there for about 6.5 years. During that time, I was pursuing my PhD in doctrinal theology, which I earned in 2021. And I came to Zion in St. Charles in 2019, November 2019, just before those dreaded pandemic.
Yes, you came in at a rough time. rough.
Yeah, it's all right. And so I've been here now, I guess, 4 years, just about exactly. So what I did was turned my dissertation for my PhD program into a book that was aimed more at lay people, so the average person in the pew could understand it. It's not in high academic language, but it's kind of drilled down, not that people are stupid and couldn't understand the dissertation, but it's just more accessible, a little easier for a person to pick up and go, okay, I get what's going on here. I see what's happening.
They call that an easy read.
Yeah.
An easy read. Yes.
Reader's Digest version.
Very, very good. And what made you want to write the book? What was your biggest reason? I know it was a dissertation, and you wanted to put it into a book, but why did you think people would want to read it?
Well, when you're in a graduate school program, you've got this dissertation hanging over your head that you have to write. And so what was going on was I was reading a lot of Martin Luther in the parish. He's a big person in our Lutheran Church's heritage, obviously, his theology. And I was also reading a lot about vices and virtues. And I started to realize Luther was saying a lot about that too. So that kind of said, hey, here's a topic I can write on. But as I researched it, I realized this is changing me probably more than anything I've ever studied in my life. Once I got through the dissertation process, my advisor who supervised the project, he said to me, he says, if you really want people to access this information and get it, you're going to have to, write a book for people. And I contacted our local publishing house, Concordia Publishing House, and they were interested in the project and we pursued it and here we go. But I think that's the reason I want people to read it, is because of the impact it had on my life, studying these themes. And most people that encounter it in classes I've taught or in conversations realize it's studying the vices and the deep issues of our heart, our flaws, is pretty potent stuff. And it can be difficult to look into your heart and name what's there, but also once we can give it a name, that's when we can kind of fight against it. We can fight that battle of our soul, because evil forces in the world want us to give into our vice, and that doesn't help our neighbor. It doesn't help us. When we can fight against those things, now we're freed from those entanglements to sin, and we're free to serve our neighbor in love.
Yeah. And I think that's actually very profound, especially this day and age, because the actual title of your book just grabbed me, because I talk to my kids about the very thing that you're talking about, that we have to keep ourselves in a good state, because if we don't, then the devil literally swoops in and then makes us do things literally like the devil made me do it, sort of a thing. And so, and it's playing out today more so than I can ever remember any time in my life that our soul is so under attack. It's social media, it's the TV, it's most schools, fortunately not the school that my kids are going to, because it's not happening there. And I brag about it often on this podcast. But if children aren't as fortunate enough to go to the type of school my kids go to, they come out learning things that aren't scriptural. And whether we like it or not, if it's not scriptural, then it's going to be bad for you. I mean, it's going to be hard for you to live your life in that sort of a manner.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned the title, because when you're publishing a book, one of the things is they've got to be able to sell the book. So, they've got some money invested in it. And so, you may want such and such a thing, but we spent about 4 hours one afternoon, believe it or not, brainstorming titles. And took me a little while to warm up to it, but I think we really hit on something that people can identify with. And it does, like you say, encapsulate the content of the book. You see those cartoons with the devil on one shoulder and the angel on another, and it can be a little oversimplified, but that's truly what's going on. I tell people when they join a church, or when they come to faith, look out now, because before, Satan didn't have anything to go after.
Now he does.
You were already in his kingdom. Now watch out. You're going to have some difficulty. You're going to have some trouble in your life. And Satan's going to try to use that to get in the way of your relationship with God, to foil that. And so you, as an individual, have to recognize there is a battle going on. And each day you sort of wake up and you say, okay, what's going to come my way? You're going to have a coworker. You're going to have someone in your life who's going to, anger is a vice we talk about in the book. I mean, how easy is it to get angry?
Yeah,
Well,
very.
recognizing that moment and saying, okay, I'm not going to let anger rule me, because almost every time anger rules us, we hurt our relationships with other people. And so we fight against it. How do we do it? Try to be gentle with other people. Try to be forgiving with them. Now, you're not going to win that battle every time. But if you can win it more consistently, you're going to be a better force for good in your world and the world around you.
That is so true. When you get angry and you hear the word kind of like you get red, like seeing this, we've all done it, then you're not seeing clearly. And that's such a normal emotion to have, but it is definitely a vice. I've never really looked at it until you said that it is a vice that is not used. I mean, God says, that I guess that we can be angry, but we have to almost be angry in love.
Yeah, anger is an interesting vice. Many people have heard of the 7 deadly sins. Another name for those are the deadly vices, and they're habits. They're things we get used to falling into over and over again. Anger has an interesting history because it is not always a sin to be angry. When we see injustice in our world, the natural response is that we feel anger. But because we're a sinful people, it's very easy for that anger to spill over into something that's going to be destructive in our lives or the lives of other people. Pride is another vice. Envy. We talked about anger. Yes. Sloth, not carrying out our duties every day, being lazy, ignoring the things God's calling us to. Greed, wanting more and more just for the sake of having more. Gluttony, not controlling the things we consume. And then the final one is lust, which is also kind of run rampant in our society today. These things, the early Christians saw like, hey, you can go in a monastery all alone and get far away from everyone as you want, and you're still going to find that these basic impulses rise up inside you. You can't escape them. What you got to do is recognize them and fight back against them.
Pastor Mike, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
When you were talking about like your different vices and everything,
Yeah.
and you were saying how as Christians, we are now going to, be bombarded even more before we were Christians. One of the things, wife and 3 kids in a home.
Sure.
Every morning we try to at least pray over our kids before they go to school.
Yeah.
Especially those that are going into the public schools. But in the district where my children go to, especially in the middle school, they have a weekly, I believe it's like on Wednesday after school, it's Kids for Christ, and it's actually led by one of the teachers.
And that's in a public school?
It's in a public school.
Wow.
It's
Okay,
it's an after school activity, which you would have to have a teacher or somebody in the school sponsor it. But the fact that, I'm not in the schools as much. I would like to get a little more involved as a parent, PTO, the whole 9 yards. But it's refreshing to see that even in a public school, that the kids are starting to cry out for God.
Yeah, I think there is a spiritual void right now in our nation. And how that comes out is people search for more meaning than just the world is giving them. The downside of that is there's so many options out there right now. I think, Wicca has been one of the fastest growing religions in the past decade. So there's a lot of options, a lot of bad options out there, but there's still a spiritual hunger, and there's opportunity for things like that, after school programs to come in and make an impact for good. And even more importantly then is when in the home that's backed up and reinforced.
Correct.
Like at our church, we have a confirmation program for 6th and 7th graders. If what we say one day a week, for a couple of years is not reinforced at home, it's not going to stick with the kids. We look at ourselves as partners and equippers, but there's no greater influence than a kid's mom and dad, kind of coming in and partnering alongside whatever spiritual entity is going on in their child's life.
One other thing, would you agree with me or not? As a pastor, you see it from a pulpit standpoint versus a congregational standpoint. I always remember as a kid growing up, we didn't understand what was going on, but we were always in church on the pew, playing, sleeping, whatever. And I heard a preacher one time say, parents, it doesn't matter if they don't understand.
Yeah.
You have them there. They are there, and you may not understand or know, but when they're getting older, they're actually listening. They're picking up certain things here and there. The whole sermon might be just kind of a blur to them.
Yeah.
But, they might be picking up, oh, Jesus loves me.
Right.
Just like my mom and dad love me. So I put Jesus and mom and dad as
right.
one together.
Habits are formed young and very hard to undo. Bad habits are easy to form. Good habits, virtues are hard to develop and easy to break. So when you set that example from a young age, that just becomes part of who we are and our identity. And it's funny, we'll cling to things we learned in our childhood, good and bad things, tenaciously. I mean, even, intellectually, maybe we know something's wrong later on in our life, but that's how we did it when we were kids. And it takes us a long time to sort of let that out of our grip. Well, we can use that also for good. A lot of people say it is hard to have kids in church when they're young. I mean, you better be bringing the Cheerios, the crayons, etc. But they learn that, this is what we do. And you're right. We have talk about this at seminary when we're there and kind of being formed as pastors. A lot of times the things we teach are more caught than they are taught. The example we set teaches more than the words we say. And so they're already learning truths by what they observe and are experiencing far before, you teach a kid to pray the Lord's Prayer long before they have any idea what those words mean. But they grow into that, and their knowledge and understanding grow of it. And it's a lifelong process. Even adults continue to learn and grow. So I agree with you 100%. Take your kids to church. We say at our church design, we don't care if we hear toys clanging on the floor, kids screaming. Yeah, when you're, it can get a little on your nerves when you're trying to listen or hear, but, take them out to the lobby, calm them down, bring them back in. We would much rather have our sermons be interrupted 3 times by a kid crying than to not have the future of the church in our pews, because kids are the future of the church.
That's huge, don't you think? I mean, that's huge, because there's what I really like about the church that I go to is they do really say that. You'll go to other churches and the children are not there. They're literally either the parents didn't bring them or they're at a children's program, and there's nothing I have a problem with children's programs. I think they're great, but it seems like people don't want to see their kids anymore that are interrupting people. And so it's just a bunch of adults in there. I love to go to church and see the kids. It doesn't bother me, of course, hearing the clanging and the banging. I'm not up on the pulpit preaching though, but so I'm sure
every once in a while you have a wild Sunday and you think, I don't know if the people heard anything, but it's the habit. It's the habit of gathering together as the body of Christ. Kids are part of the body of Christ. Most parents know when their kids are making too big a racket, they'll kind of slip them out and calm them down. But it's the community we form together. You can't teach virtue alone as a family. You can't live a virtuous life in this world alone. You need a community where kids say, well, not only do we believe this, but this person believes it. And that person believes it. And here we all gather together and say the same thing. I mean, think about some of the things conservative churches are teaching and how different that sounds from what our culture is teaching, whether we're talking about sexuality issues or gender or marriage. Pretty much any conservative church is going to look fundamentally different from the world right now.
Got a question for you. And I apologize with it.
Oh, you're on.
Greg makes a really good point on YouTube. He says, how do I rectify with God my suffering and pain due to long-term illness? I try to smile through it, but all my soul is bruised due to illness. And, this is one of those things to where a hurt or an illness, a long-term situation, or a sudden death of a family member or something like that. Or, in my case, for a while there, when I was injured from my job, I kind of looked up and said, what's my purpose? Yeah. I need something. And, almost 10 years later, I never expected to be standing next to Lizzie and talking to you behind a microphone. It's interesting how life just kind of moves itself. But, in a situation like this, when you're struggling with an illness or pain like this, how would you as a pastor lead somebody into, finding peace?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the interruption of me, on a soapbox about vices and virtues. They actually hear a real question from a listener. And so thank you for the courage of asking that. As a pastor, you get asked this question all the time. It's an age-old question. If God is good and he's all powerful, then why is there suffering and evil in the world? Why do bad things happen? And it really hits home when something bad is happening to me. And first of all, what I like to tell people is, no religious system out there has the perfect explanation for suffering and evil. They all try. The Christian story is that we're living in a fallen, broken world due to the sin in our lives. It wasn't supposed to be that way. It's that way now, but we're looking forward to a redemption to come again when Christ returns and makes all things new. That's our hope. That's the whole point of believing, going to church, fighting the battle of the soul, is so that on our last breath, we die believing in Jesus Christ and his salvation. In the meantime, though, we've still got these struggles in our life. And the Christian doesn't try to brush those aside. You hear a common answer, oh, God is working for good through your suffering. And I believe he is. You experienced that when you had a turnaround at some point and kind of things get back on track. And oftentimes in hindsight, we can see how a rough period in our life was shaping us, forming us for something later. But in the case of those with long-term illness or terminal pain, things like this, that answer doesn't always resonate in their ears too well. The best thing we can say in the face of that is Jesus knows our pain. He came to this earth and walked with us, breathed our poisoned air, as one hymn says, walked our guilty sod. Every experience that we have humanly, Jesus has had. So he does not understand your pain, and he's ready for you to cry out to him. Sometimes he answers prayers and takes that pain away. Other times we sit and live with it, and it doesn't seem fair. But I will say this, he's not a God far and away. He's a God who entered the muck and mire of this earth, bled and died for us so that one day things could be better. And that's the hope we hope people can cling to in the midst of suffering. Because again, Satan will use this adversity to try to get us to doubt God's goodness, doubt God's love. The key is to try to hang on to it, because the hope, I love this passage in Scripture, our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things,
beautiful passage.
Well, especially with losing my dad to cancer and everything.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I asked that question, why? And later on we'll talk, because I wore another hat at one point in my life. And so one of the things that my dad always taught me as bringing me up in the church is, no matter what your sickness, what your pain, what your experience is on earth, you won't have pain in heaven. Right. You won't have sadness in heaven. You won't have, heaven is a perfect place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So everything all the negatives and even the positives that you feel on earth are flesh.
Yeah.
It's just dirt and water.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and if you think about it, if you look back, if eternity, I mean, how do we conceive of eternity? Forever and ever and ever. After you've been there a million years, there's still millions more to go. You'll look back on your earthly life, and it won't seem like more than a speck of dust on the scales.
Blink of an eye.
But for those who are experiencing hardship now, it's everything. It's everything. And what we say is Jesus entered into this world to fix that. We don't have the solution to evil yet, but we have a promise of a solution to evil. And that's worth hanging on to in the time. It doesn't take the pain and suffering away. It doesn't make it easier for that individual. But then as the body of Christ, as the church, then we suffer alongside people. We remember them in our prayers. We serve them in ways that we can. It gives other people opportunity to exercise their gifts in serving others in love.
Well, and what can you say? Somebody on one of our chat lines had a question that, and I agree with everything that you're saying, Pastor Mike, where if you're suffering and you have pain, church is where I feel like I want to go, because there's a community of believers that you are with. Somebody on the chat line says, how do you reconcile it if, and this question is asked often, when the church, not the church, but the people in the church hurt you? And I'm sure that that's asked a lot. So some people have left church because they feel somebody at church hurt them, or they were mad because they couldn't go to church because people had masks on, or they were mad because the pastor said something they didn't like. How can you address that?
Well, I'll address it two ways. One is going to sound kind of harsh, so I pray the listener will hang on for the second answer. The one is, picture yourself, fictional scenario here, but to make a point. Yeah, on Judgment Day, Jesus says, why didn't you come worship me on earth? Well, because that person made me mad. It's like, oh, okay. You let one person's hurt, get in the way of worshiping the Almighty God who gave you life and breath and being and died for your sins. That's not going to hold water.
I guess the question would be, who are you going to church for?
Yeah,
right.
Jesus or Joe Blow?
No, there are times when people do things that are wrong and hurt others. In that case, you try to seek reconciliation. That's the Christian thing to do. But say that other person's stubborn and they won't reconcile you. Maybe there is a time when you say, okay, I've tried. Maybe this body of Christ for me right now is not the place to be. There's other congregations. But here's the thing about jumping congregations and stuff. The grass isn't green around the other side. Churches are full of sinners. And it shouldn't surprise us when pastors sin, when church members sin, when people say meanful and hurtful things to us, it doesn't excuse those things, but this is the world, and the church is not some sacrosanct place set apart from the world. We're there because we're sinners and need forgiveness. And so I think just a more realistic view of people in churches are not going to act, unfortunately, often that different from the world. They're not perfect. They're just forgiven. And so you kind of got to see the bigger picture of things and realize that if we let other people's petty sins get in the way of our relationship with God, we're sort of allowing that. Now, again, every situation is different. Minor annoyances I would treat far different than, grave sin done to somebody. And again, there is sometimes a case for sort of shaking your dust off your boots and saying, all right, because of what's happened here, I can't worship it with a pure heart. I need to go somewhere else. But again, be aware, because wherever you move, give it enough time and you'll see the ugly side of that congregation or church as well. And so just staying the course and being faithful.
And there was another question that today, when we go to churches don't look like what they used to look like maybe when we were kids. I would say that's different in the church that we go to. It's stayed the same. It's scripturally sound and it stayed the same. So I'm not talking about Zion, but there's often other churches that people go to that what they're preaching on the pulpit isn't scripture. They're preaching either social justice, or they're preaching just their opinion, or they're preaching only music, say from Joy FM. And don't get me wrong, I like Joy FM music, but it's become more of a show than really getting to people's souls. But my question about that is, did something happen in the seminaries to change this? Where did that change? Was it our culture or was it the seminaries?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that what church looks like and the kind of music is going to look different in many places and around the world.
Correct.
And there's no one right formula. There are churches who are more contemporary of nature who are going to connect with people that a more conservative church just can't. So we're trying to translate the message to meet the people where they're at. That being said, the more the church reflects the world, the harder it is for that church to distinguish itself from the world. And so if your church looks like a rock concert, it's going to be hard for kids being formed in that context to distinguish between that and, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it may be harder to form. Maybe you go into a Catholic church or an Eastern Orthodox church and it still looks really liturgical and chanting, and there's a lot of mystery there. Some people would be lost in that environment, but there's also something sacred about that people grow into and learn. It shouldn't be easy from the start. So I'm not here to advocate for one style over the other, but to your second point, what's being preached? I don't care what the music is or what the building looks like or the liturgy. How you will recognize the true church from the false church is the true church. What's coming out of the mouths of the people there should echo God's word. And yes, we do have a lot of churches that say, you know what, whatever's going on in culture is what we're going to do because it's easier to swim with the stream than swim upstream. Jesus was pretty clear in scripture. If you follow me, the world's not going to like you. In America, back in the 50s and 60s, Leave It to Beaver days, a lot of what society was saying did reflect what the church was saying. We're a far cry from that today. And so it takes a lot of courage to be a Christian, a lot of resolve. And again, I think that's why you got to do it in community and not alone.
It seems like a lot of, and I'm going to throw this mega church thing out there because the Joel Osteen's, I call them the TV pastors. Yeah. It seems like it's all about getting the butt in the seat and getting the money out of the pocket. Sure. And to Lizzie's question, it's, different churches. I am a non-denominational Pentecostal type of church. So my church and the way I was raised is going to look completely different than, we on the Pentecostal side always used to call the Lutherans the Bud Light of Catholics.
Yeah. Right. Catholic Light.
Catholic Light. Yeah. And it wasn't like a jab at you. It was just how to explain, the Lutherans are like.
But Lutherans can take that up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm a former Catholic and I'm a Catholic Light Lutheran.
But in that situation, these mega churches, these TV pastors, it's even I think it was Joel Osteen. It's almost like he doesn't preach the word. He preaches the prosperity.
Yeah,
it's
well,
like
there's
not everybody can be rich.
There's a name for that, and you hit on it. I guess in our circles, we would refer to some of that as the prosperity gospel. Now, even Joel Osteen can have a good day or two, right?
Right.
Even he, as he preaches on Scripture, can stumble across truth. And, we hate to throw stones at everything, but we will criticize where parts of that message may not go with God's word. One of the biggest problems with the prosperity gospel is it says this: you follow Jesus with your life, everything's going to click, everything's going to go good, God's going to bless you.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, look what we just had on a comment on the station. Here I am talking about church. Someone's been away from church. Maybe they're a little mad at God about their situation. And they would think maybe there's something wrong with my faith. That's why I'm experiencing this suffering. Well, no, experiencing suffering is because we're living in a fallen world here. And so we don't we don't measure people's success on how strong their faith is. In fact, as I said earlier, the stronger your faith is, the more you might feel attacked by Satan, because now you're working in force for the kingdom of God, and he's going to come after you harder. So we always joke, the Joel Osteens of the world's bumper sticker might be, come follow Jesus and your life will go great. And maybe Lutherans would say, our bumper sticker would say, come follow Jesus and your life will probably get worse.
Right.
Or if it was my bumper sticker,
Right.
is, you follow Jesus as close as you're following me.
Yeah,
there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a lot of people that I know that listen to Joy FM and then will go listen to Joel Osteen and stuff. And I'm really cautious as to I like how Pastor Mike talked about that, because sometimes he does come out with some good little quips. I think he's a great motivational speaker. And if somebody comes to Christ through him, they'll want to get more later anyway.
Sure.
That might have brought them to Christ, but then after that, they can see it's just more motivation than Scripture, and they'll change.
Well, and the other thing is it just moral exhortation? Now, this book I wrote, Battle of the Soul, this is a lot of moral exhortation, teaching people right from wrong and how to live. But the main message of Christianity is Jesus died for our sins and risen again. And if you listen to some of the prosperity gospel preachers, it is a lot more about just living good thinking, positive thinking. There's not a lot of Christ crucified. There's not a lot of talk about sin. And if you don't talk a lot about sin, you start to lose sight that you need a savior from that sin. You sort of lose sight of the fact that, well, I'm not in this to have my best life now, to quote one of his books. I'm in this to have my best life someday in a better world that's far going to exceed my best day here.
But to get to that point, you have to try to live your best life now.
Well, you do live your best life, but
no,
but life is not always going to go good.
No, it's not going to go the way you want it.
Right.
But
Correct.
Get up every day and it sounds stupid, but
Yeah.
get up every day and just, hey, Lord, thank you for the day. Thank you for allowing me to stand up, take the breath of life for the day.
Oh yeah.
Because every day is not promised to us.
Yeah.
But from there, you try to take every step of your day in the best manner you can. That would be pleasing to.
Yeah.
I got a friend, Dennis, out in New York, and he just suffered through leukemia, blood leukemia, hereditary, had to have stem cell transplant, all this stuff. He's just been through heck and back. And but Dennis's motto, I've been stealing it a lot lately. He says, "Go find the next right thing to do and do it. Do the next right thing." And man, if you chunk off life like that, like, okay, what's the next good thing that needs to be done? And I take responsibility for it and I go do it. I think Jesus would give a thumbs up to that attitude towards life. Don't worry about 10 years from now or 10 days from now. You're called to live for today, and whoever God places in your path, whatever duties have been laid before you, you're going to screw a fair part of it up. You repent of that at night. You go to bed, you sleep forgiven, you wake up and do it again.
Absolutely. Well, Pastor Mike, where can we find your book?
Well, good old Amazon.com is selling it with free shipping for those with Prime memberships. So yes. I think that's probably the most efficient way to go. But Concordia Publishing House will also sell it. And again, I think if you buy enough there, you can get some free shipping. They don't have quite the buying power. But if you want to support a local, smaller publishing house and not old big Amazon, you can go to cph.org. And then eventually we'll probably find some used copies, on the discount rack on any number of sites on eBay. If people who read it and say, this didn't help me that much, I'll sell it for 50 cents. So if you want to hold out, but no, I'd encourage you to check it out. If you think it could help you in your walk with Christ and your walk as a Christian, or maybe you're not a Christian, but you just think, hey, I struggle with things in my life that seem to dominate me. How can I get a better hold on them? And I guess my hope for this book would be that you live more consistently in God's will, and maybe even consider the Christian faith if you're not in it. So.
For those readers that don't use the actual real book, do you have it on digital copy also?
It is available for a Kindle download.
Okay.
So there's a electronic version of it. I don't think that our publishing house has the kind of connections to do like Audible or anything like that.
Let's say you should audio your book too in your own voice.
This voice, right? Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah,
Well, this
you
is
got
not a
voice.
voice made for radio, I don't think.
And people have said I don't have a face for TV.
Yeah,
so.
all right.
Well, there you go. There you go. Well, my book already is coming November the 1st. It's
Yeah.
sitting in my Amazon cart.
Well, thanks, Lizzie, for a lot. More importantly, to plug the book, I'm thankful for the questions that came in. Oftentimes, when people find out, oh, you're a pastor, all of a sudden there's some deep spiritual question that's been welling up inside, and they'll seize an opportunity to ask it, and that's just part of the gig. I used to shy away from it, but now I'm fortunate for that, because it allows us to kind of speak truth in the midst of the chaos and confusion of our lives. And I hope some of it's helpful.
And remember one thing, folks out there, whatever church you go to, a pastor is just as human as we are.
Thank you.
They have,
yes. and I've seen Pastor Mike. There's nobody louder
you,
in the stands when his children are running.
Well, listen, Lizzie's building me up here. He's competitive, and I'm thinking, she's heard me yell at football games.
I have. So. He's the loudest one in the stands. So if you want to come and see a pastor that's real and normal, come and see Pastor Mike. That's why my husband and I like him.
Every
so
pastor,
so
if
real.
you cut them, they bleed red. If you hurt them, they're going to cry. Yeah. And if you annoy them enough, they're going to fight back.
Yes.
And even get angry.
Yep. So, we all do. We all do. Well, thank you very much, Pastor Mike.
Pastor Mike. Thank you so much.
Good to meet you all.
I appreciate it. We'll have to have you back, because that's something that's lacking in society, is this kind of discussion. So
yeah, maybe we could once or twice a year just do an open question.
Yeah, that would be great. Just an open
questions
question
people have about faith or God or religion, anything like that.
That would be great. We would love it. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll see you on Sunday. Well, maybe even before that at school.
Yeah. All right. Take care, y'all. Nice.
Thank you.
Hey, Lizzie. Great segment. I know that they always tell you don't talk about church and politics and all the rest of it, but you know what? We talk about all of it.
We do talk about all of it. And at our church, they don't really get political up on the pulpit. They're not up there saying, I'm a Trump supporter or DeSantis or Biden or anything. But you probably heard from what he was saying. They preach real scripture, and real scripture, whether you like it or not, is a conservative thing. And we do have a conservative church. And you can say that is conservative in politics, or you can say conservative in their worship, or you can say conservative in however you want to say it. But it's lacking in this world. I really wanted Pastor Mike on, because all this is lacking in the world. And that's the problem that we're in today, is people are afraid to talk about religion, Jesus, or even if you're Jewish, like people are afraid to talk about, going to the temple or wherever you're going, because it's gotten scary. I thought we were doing better. I thought, 10 years ago, we had come out of our closet, so to speak, and started talking about religion and politics, because they could see that our lack of doing that was causing a great disservice to our country. Once we, reared our ugly little heads and started talking about it, they want to whack-a-mole our heads again and put us in the hoosegow and get us to shut up.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the MO is, when something is said, and and I'm going to say it out loud, when the truth is being told, they don't want to listen until that point in time to where, they're either going to have to listen, because there will become a day, and believe me, folks, I struggle with it. I struggle every day. Every day I struggle, because, I don't feel that I'm doing the best. Like Pastor Mike said, look for that next best thing to do. And sometimes I don't see life through my lenses are a little foggy sometimes.
I think most people's lenses are foggy. I think that's normal.
It is. It's a normal human thing. But when you take your last breath, there will be one day, and it says in the Bible, every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord, and we all will be judged.
We will be judged. People don't think that, because they're like, stop judging me.
You think it's bad now judging on this earth? There will be a day to where there is one last judgment, and there is no other, there's nothing you can do after that final judgment. And so it's just how it is. But I do agree with you. At no point in time, I'm going to go out of the church for a minute. I don't want to when I go to a concert, I don't want to hear the political view of the singer or whatever.
Me either.
If I go to a hockey game or a baseball game, I'm there for what I paid the ticket for. So when I show up for church, I don't expect or want to hear the preacher talk about their political views, because at the end of the day, it's all about Jesus bringing the people to the Lord, and it's about the scriptures. So I agree with you 100%. Yes, you're going to get that influence of conservatism or liberalism or whatever. And we have kind of bastardized the fact that we have to throw church and state together, especially when our Constitution actually separates church and state.
Correct.
So, bringing them together, it's, I don't know, it's human.
Yeah.
And birds of a feather flock together.
Correct.
So, if you're conservative in your thinking and everything, you're going to find a church that is conservative, like-minded.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, you want to find your flock,
yes,
who you want to hang with.
Pretty much.
And that is something, and I thought it was absolutely the most obvious during the pandemic. And I'm not talking about whether you wore a mask or not. That's not what I'm saying. It was when you went home and you saw what your kids were learning, you saw what your church were saying, you kind of saw the true colors of people. So you kind of learned, was this a political thing or is this really about Jesus? And this could be a political thing too. I believe it's Troy is asking on the chat line, something that I did not see when the pastor was here was, I'm not sure how this is political or if it's just an opinion or what it is, but he was asking, does my pastor smoke weed or does he believe in smoking weed? I have no idea. Just to answer that, I have no idea. But, I'm going to get his book November the 1st, and I can ask him. I see him quite often. Say, hey, Mike, you can, when you see him in person, you can say, hey, Mike, you don't have to call him doctor or pastor. You could say, hey, Mike, and
don't try his last name because you might.
It's Fieberkorn. His name is Mike Fieberkorn, and his family is lovely. His wife Angela is lovely. He's got 3 great kids. His son was on the prom court. I mean, this is one. I hate to say this word when it's about a pastor, but this is one badass family. But I don't know if I have to chuckle because I think he'd laugh if he was here. Does he smoke weed? I don't know.
I would probably say no.
I would say no because of his book. His book was talking about vices. And I don't know if weed is considered a vice. I'm guessing. I've never done it myself, but now I'm going to ask him. Now I'm going to say, hey.
Well, it depends on if you think about metformin as a vice.
I mean, it's technically, if you look at it, Joe, any type of
anything
heavy prescription that you could be
would be a vice.
Would be a vice.
Porn is a vice.
As I say, it doesn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't have to be a heavy prescription. It can be a water pill.
Yeah, something that you
if it's something that your body needs. I mean, that's what I don't understand.
Or craves.
If your body needs, or
correct. But
maybe it's not a crave because I know that. Well, I don't know. It doesn't.
It was just
because I know that I don't crave metformin.
And what's
my
metformin?
body needs it.
What's metformin? I'm like totally.
I'm type 2 diabetic.
Oh, got it. Okay,
it's a
I do know what that
medicine,
is. Yeah. Got it. Well, yeah, that's not a vice. I mean, that's something you have to have.
However, one could say the same about marijuana. I would not be able to function on the same level without it.
Right,
and that's true. And here is what I guess I would say to that one is the fact that each individual, you shouldn't go to another person.
Yeah.
To ask them the question, is this correct? Is this right?
Yeah. I get why people ask pastors though. I mean, I know that they're just human, but they're supposed to be, maybe I'm putting too much pressure on pastors. They're supposed to be the example. And I do know that they're held to a higher standard. And I don't know if you smoked pot, that means that you are not at a higher standard. I really don't. I mean, I don't, but that actually intrigues me. So I'm going to ask him when I see him. I'm going to say, do you smoke pot, Pastor Mike? I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming he doesn't. I've never smelt it. I'm assuming he doesn't, but there you go.
But, like you said, everyone holds a minister or a pastor up at a higher standard. You know what?
They used to hold teachers to a higher standard too. And now teachers, you know what? Darren, who is one of our listeners, and we've touched on it a couple times, he's been sending me pictures of this Hazelwood counselor that she's on a For Only's page and like sticks her butt up in the air and all that kind of stuff. And so,
OnlyFans probably?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, went over
but
those
yet
bar.
that somebody else in a different school district can get fired for that.
And I can definitely tell you in the Lutheran school system, if you did that, you would be let go, because there is a biblical, example of how you're supposed to. So I can't imagine that somebody in, Religion 101 there at Zion Lutheran could be on that fan page and still keep their job. Just saying. I don't know.
Can I turn one on you guys? Because when I was out there listening this morning, when you guys were talking about the shootings and all the rest of that, I Joe, do you have that video by chance? I came across this video. It's John Rich. We all know John Rich from Big and Rich. But it's John Rich talking about, he was at a party in Beverly Hills and Nancy Pelosi was there. And I found it very interesting because, he even says, when you watch the video, he goes, I felt kind of completely out of place. So Joe, if you'll hit this one real quick, I just thought it was really interesting when it comes to thoughts of the conservative versus liberal thinking on guns.
So I have a story about Nancy Pelosi asking me about guns in a backyard in Beverly Hills.
Really?
I'd like to hear it.
Absolutely.
I know, right? That got your attention. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So I'm back there. I got invited to sing at Tony Bennett's 85th birthday party. And I'm in the backyard of Ted Sarandos, the founder of Netflix. I'm in his backyard. There's John Travolta. Queen Latifah and I are bringing out the birthday cake. I mean, you can't make this up. I'm looking around this backyard going, I'm not supposed to be here, so I'm just going to have some fun. No, one of these things is not like the other. So I'm back there and I'm hanging out, and I see Nancy Pelosi over there starts making a beeline towards me. And I'll be honest, it was frightening.
I bet it was frightening.
She's coming, and she walks right up to me. She doesn't say hello. She goes, "You seem like a reasonable person."
She's probably never met
for a
him.
guy in a cowboy hat and a handlebar mustache, because otherwise you wouldn't be at this backyard, right? You must be a reasonable. You seem like a reasonable person. I said, "Well, I appreciate that, Madam Speaker." She goes, "Can I ask you a question about guns?" I said, "Absolutely." Oh yeah. So Vince Vaughn is standing there, and Vince leans in. Travolta's got his arms crossed. He's leaning in.
Great, yeah.
Everybody's leaning in. And Pelosi goes, "Now, I'm not a hunter, but I'm pretty sure that if I shot that first bullet at whatever I was hunting and I didn't hit it, it would run away." I go, "That's correct." She goes, "So why does anybody need more than 7 rounds," is what she said. "Why does anybody need more than 7 rounds in their gun?" And I held up my cell phone. I said, "Well, Madam Speaker, right now back in Nashville, Tennessee, I have a wife and I got a 3-year-old son and a 5-year-old son. And we live right in the middle of town." I said, "Now, if she had called my phone right now and said, 'John, I hear footsteps coming up the stairs,' I said, 'Madam Speaker, would you advise me to tell my wife to grab the one with 7 rounds or the one with 30 rounds? And her eyes kind of got big, and she said, "Is that the way you look at that?" I said,
my God.
"Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Well, it was nice to meet you," and then just walked off. But for a brief moment, this light bulb pops. I believe, first of all, they know that anyway. That's why they all have armed guards.
Yeah. Yep.
But I was able to, dead in her eye one time, say, "It's to protect our families." Of course, we don't need 30 rounds to hunt a deer, and there's nothing in the Second Amendment about hunting. It's all about defense.
Good for you.
That was really good. That was really good.
This is my dad, Chuck Norris.
His dad is Chuck Norris.
No,
I was like, okay, well, that was boy. That
it was
got,
whatever was on the net, but it was perfect. My dad, Chuck Norris, is the one that could, you don't want to be. But yeah, I found that really interesting. Is when you guys were talking about, we kind of give clout to these shooters.
We do.
And that's yes, you want to talk about it because it's news, but. Have you? I've always thought that maybe these people not only have issues on top of that, but are they trying to find clout in what they're doing? Are they seeking attention so much,
of course,
that they have to do something on a grand scale, to get that attention? And the media, I mean, just eats it up. And the fact that, they always say their name, blah, blah, blah. Well, people like this don't say their name, don't give them that clout. And the fact that, I know Speaker Pelosi should not be that obtuse to understand that, first of all, she showed her hand because I am a hunter and I don't even have 7 rounds in my own gun. It may be 4 at the most. Depending on what type of magazine that are in those types of guns. But a traditional 30-06 or a 308 or stuff like that only has a capacity to hold like 4. And, I will disagree that I've shot at a deer before and it basically just kind of stand there and laughed at me. It felt like it didn't move.
Didn't even move.
And the fact that, you got a second chance.
Yeah.
But, it's the stupidity of the fact of thinking that, oh, well, we just got to ban guns and all the rest because the guns are bad. Well, folks, it's not the gun. It's the person buying the gun.
Correct.
That's reality.
Yeah.
And, last time I checked my firearms at my house that have disappeared a long time ago.
They disappeared. Yeah, you don't have any
in a boat accident. Yeah,
while you were doing your crack cocaine.
Yeah.
You definitely.
I didn't realize I did all that stuff. But
but Vic says you did, so of course it has to be true. Of course it has to be true.
For those of you who are on Facebook, it's now Facebook official. So if it's on Facebook, it must be.
It must be true. Everything on Facebook is real. Everything. But it's about getting real. I think people, besides the fact that you do crack cocaine and you got rid of all your guns and now you drink Bush Light and you're a liberal.
I'm not a liberal.
Okay, so all the rest is true.
You can put all the rest on me all day long. Yeah, I'm not a liberal.
But you're not a liberal.
Not a liberal.
Okay, well, could you tell our listeners, what did you do in your former life? And why do I want to talk about it in October?
Well, you want to talk about it in October because it's the spooky and the ghouls and all the rest of that.
Yes,
and death is macabre. But for those listeners out there who do not... sorry, gang, but I have a t-shirt idea for to cancel this t-shirt. I actually am working on that one, Greg. The Psalms 109:8.
Mm-hmm.
So I am working on that one. But back to what Lizzie was saying. Back in the day, for those of you who don't know, I am a card-carrying licensed funeral director in the state of Missouri. So I guess if you want to say that is, I've seen dead people. They did not know they were dead.
No, wait, you said that to me yesterday.
Yes.
That you've seen dead people.
I've seen dead people.
And they didn't know they were dead.
Nope.
What do you mean by that?
They don't know they're dead.
Okay, so like you die and you're talking about in the morgue?
I spent 8.5 years in a local funeral home here. So
okay, so if you see, if they're dead, if this person's dead, but they don't know they're dead, how do you know that they don't know that they're dead?
Because they didn't tell me.
Oh, for God's sakes. You set me up for that. But
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Oh my
Tip
gosh.
your waitresses and your bartenders. No. People have a fascination to a point with death. I experienced it in almost 16 years of my career before I was injured in a weird accident. But I started at the age of like 19. So back early 2000. It was just one of those things to where I kind of fell into a part-time job, just washing cars. And then it evolved into putting the suit on and getting my funeral director's license because, I'm the type that I have a passion to help people.
Even dead people.
I mean, well, and you know what? There, some of the men and women that I've worked with, you go to a funeral and you see, I always find it so interesting that, here's another one of those isms is when they go up to the casket to see their loved one, you hear people say, well, grandma looks great. Hey folks, grandma looks dead.
Yeah. Like grandma looks great.
She's dead. She don't look great. But the embalmers and the makeup artists and the hair, they do such a phenomenal job to make
makeup to
make your loved one appear that they're resting because a visitation, a funeral is not for the dead. It's for those living.
Right. That's exactly
and
right.
It's that closure that nothing's more scary than Greg, I will tell you this. I'm glad you said that. When I first started working at
say what he said.
So Greg said nothing more scary than a body sitting up in a morgue. I was sitting there putting in fire suppression systems and a man sat up and I never went back to that job site. It's funny you say that because what people don't realize or understand is there is still muscle contracting that could happen. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first started working in the industry, one of my my main things that we had to do was body removals. Yes, and it's when people always think, oh, people always die in the hospital or die in they go to the morgue or whatever. No, I mean, if somebody passes at home, we go to the home where they pass, and we respectfully retrieve them and bring them back to the funeral home. But I was by myself removing a remains, and we have these cots that just like a gurney, and it has seatbelts on it, so you strap them in just like you would in a car. You put your seatbelt on. Well, apparently I didn't clip the seatbelt all the way, and I'm driving down the road, and all of a sudden, boom! Yeah, that sit up.
Okay, so say that again. So you're driving down the road. I'm driving down the road. Somebody's in a casket.
No, not a casket. A gurney. So
you did say that.
So like what they same situation like you would have in the back of an ambulance, and yeah.
Did you pee your pants?
I had to pull over.
I would think so that they're laying there and then they just sit up and they're dead. Oh my gosh.
It wasn't just like just jumped right up, kind of like jolting out of bed. It was, and I think somebody said the worst. There's
gases.
There's gases, and still maybe not air in their lungs, but there's something.
Yeah.
So where
some people call it energy, some people call it gas.
So you might hear a little groan, and all that is just air passing over a vocal cord or anything. But yeah, I mean, we're talking. I was probably 6 months into starting my career.
Wow.
And you want to talk about a heart-stopping moment. I had to pull over to the side of the road, take a couple deep breaths, and walk back there and made sure that the buckle on that thing was latched. And I got back to the funeral home, and I was talking with one of my other colleagues that has been in the funeral home forever. He was an OG guy, and I said, you're not going to believe this, thinking that this has never happened to anybody else. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. This happened. And the bodies just sat up and groaned. He goes, first time, huh? And I'm like, first time this happens?
Yeah. He's like, so this happens all the time?
He goes, happens all the time. He goes, it's not like a normal thing. He goes, but yeah, you're going to hear things. And he goes, it's not your mind. It is actually happening. So it was one of those things where, if I could sit back and write a book on the weird things that I've experienced in these short 16 years, mind you, half of my time was working in the funeral home. The other half was working in a cemetery. But, the stories are more of the people that you see and not the dead. For instance, the
mourning people, the people that are
the living, so I'm a people watcher. So when my dad was alive, we used to love going to the mall, sit right there in the middle of it, and just we played a game that was called Tell Their Story. Yeah. And so he and I would just sit there and tell the story of what we think's going on. Well, I recall at one point, back in the day, there was a gentleman. I believe he was his life was taken by someone else over money or something. I don't recall the exact story on how this gentleman went to pass, but his wife put him in this wonderful, beautiful casket and laid him out in a tuxedo.
A tuxedo with a bow tie,
the black tie, the whole 9 yards, and I overheard some of the people at his visitation, and somebody said something about, so-and-so, he looks so amazing in that tuxedo. And as soon as they said that, I heard somebody else say, yeah, his wife rented that and it's not going back.
Seriously?
Swear
like
to God.
It was just for laying there and then they were...
Oh, no. She buried him in it.
Oh.
So went and rented a tuxedo.
Yes.
And buried him in it. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the tuxedo rental place.
Could you imagine being the tuxedo rental place going, excuse me, ma'am, we'd like you to return the tuxedo.
And you have to say,
And you're
well,
like,
you can go out to
no,
Bell
yes,
Fountain
I say
Gardens
it's
and pick
it's
it
over
up.
there in section 4,
Oh, my
grave, whatever.
gosh.
You know, and I'm,
Could you imagine?
oh yeah. I mean,
That is crazy.
Some of the fun things, and you know, it's humorous because sometimes you have to look at death as in a lens of, you know, this
Well,
is going to happen to all of us.
Well, I remember, you know, my dad died young. He was only 49, and he didn't look like himself in the casket. I mean, he didn't really look that way. But I remember there was lots and lots of people there because when somebody, you know, is young, dies, there's just a lot of people there. And so my mom and I were standing up next to the casket, and all of a sudden, you know how you lay and your hands are like this when, you know, in the casket. I mean, that sounds morbid. And my dad's hand rose. And so like literally just
kind of raised up a little bit.
Just one hand just raised up. And of course my mom was just falling all out and God love her and crying and all this. And it was like, and what you were saying, people say. So I went to go and get somebody to deal with this because now his hand had come apart and his hand looked different on the bottom. And so my mom was all upset and all that. And my mom got so upset because then they came back and literally right in front of her goes, okay, don't anybody look, but we got to glue his hand back down. And when somebody dies that young, that quick, and my mom's like, I never thought I was going to have to deal with my husband's hand being glued back down. It was just, I will never forget that as long as I live. You know what? I really like talking to Pastor Mike more than talking about
you know, you asked for it, but
I did because I didn't know that that's what you had done.
It's like Chris said. He goes, "This is a job where you always wear your brown pants."
Oh, I bet. I bet you do always wear.
You always wear your brown pants because you never know what's going on. But you know, the great things about working in the funeral industry was the fact that you're seeing people at their worst.
Yeah. You're at the very worst you could possibly be.
And the fact that, you know, it's one of those things where we're all going to experience this. We're all going to experience death, but we're all going to experience the process of going through someone else's death. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to look at the lighter side of things.
I would imagine you would have to, or how could you do that job every day?
My love for Busch Light, definitely.
Well, there you go. Do you start drinking Busch Light more at the end of the day to just get through the day? Man, that talk about a vice.
No, not really. It was just, you know, I was in my 20s and had nothing to really hold me down. So it was, you know, after work, you just go get some beers and play a video game and everything. But the funeral home, it was interesting. You know, they always talk about, you know, when I worked at the cemetery, you know, they always talk about, oh, is the graveyard haunted? Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and speaking of a graveyard haunted, tomorrow is Free for All Friday. And in our 8 o'clock hour, one of our listeners, and she's an awesome patriot. She really is. And we'll hear her story a little bit too. But she knows about a haunted rectory. And if anybody who doesn't know what a rectory is, it's where priests live that are affiliated with the Catholic Church next door, right here in historic downtown St. Charles in Missouri. So she's going to be in the first hour. And, you know, with it being Free for All Friday, it's going to be kind of crazy. I mean, Vic will be back tomorrow. Eric will be in studio. Terry O'Neill will be here talking about that. Second hour, we're going to have Kelly Mano. And I'm not even going to tell you.
Kelly Mano. All right.
Yes, Kelly Mano.
Always enjoy when she's on.
She's going to be great. And she's going to be talking about the KISS concert that was last night.
Yes,
and that she was there. And she was one of their sponsors. So she's going to be telling us all about that. And there's other things that she's going to be doing, but I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag about what we're talking about with her about
See the reference, Halloween,
see the reference, cat out of the bag. And you'll see even more tomorrow why I mean cat out of the bag. There's a reason why I said that. And so we probably got to wrap it up because probably management is looking at us and it's like 9:59 and Joe's over there going, Joe's management. And he's like, wrap it up, Derek, wrap it up, Lizzie. So anything else? One last statement before we go.
I just wanted to thank Vic for having me in today. It's always a pleasure
I love
standing behind the mic. And, you know, when I come in, it's always, it always makes a hard left turn.
It does.
Like yesterday, just showed up with beer.
Yes, you did. But we like that. We like that. Well, and we thank very much my pastor and the pastor at Zion Lutheran Church in Harvester, Missouri. And if you're interested in his book, you can get it on Amazon.com. And it's called Battle for Your Soul by Mike Fieberkorn, and he's got it up right there. And you can also get it at Concordia Publishing, because I know a lot of people and would maybe rather buy it from a clearinghouse instead of Amazon.
And one thing before we leave, Lizzie, remember, go to the merch page. You can find you a nice shirt like this.
Mm-hmm.
You can find you a nice hat like this. You can find you a nice cup like this. Or I dare you to go on today and get you a cup of coffee, get you a bag of coffee.
Yes. Well, you know what? How about this? If you tomorrow buy a bag of coffee, Derek is going to let us know, and we're going to tell everyone who bought the bag of coffee today, thank you.
I'll tell you what, I'll make a better deal.
Okay.
If you, the first 10 people that buy a bag of coffee, 1 bag of coffee, 10 people, I will throw in one of the 10-ounce cancel this coffee mugs.
Get out.
No.
Really?
We're going to.
Okay.
So the cancel this coffee mugs, I believe, are $25.
Okay.
We will give you a cancel this coffee mug for $10. If you go, the first 10 people that buy a bag of coffee, we will give you a 10-ounce cancel this coffee mug for $10.
Yeah, that's a good deal. That's a really good deal.
So you actually can get your cancel this coffee in your coffee mug.
I love it.
I
love it.
What a deal.
What a deal.
Next 10 people.
The next 10
people to get a bag of coffee, you can get a...
You might want to put that also on the Outpost page.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Since it's towards the end of the show.
Next 10 people, you order a bag of coffee, and we will give you a 10-ounce coffee mug for $10.
That's
so
a wonderful
that's
deal.
an incentive to grab some coffee.
All right. Okay. Well, you know what, Derek?
Hey,
That's a wrap.
The fastest 2 hours in radio is podcasting. Yes.
Podcasting. There might be radio faster. I don't know. But as far as podcasting, fastest 2 hours.
Thank you all. Thank you, Pro Joe. Thank you, Lizzie Sparks. For Vic Faust, I'm Derek Pratt. Have a wonderful day.